Okay, good afternoon. I'm Todd Keating, Chief Probation Officer. I'm going to call the CCP to order. Welcome, everybody. Yolanda, can you do a roll call?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Before I do the roll call, I would like to remind everybody present to please wait for the public comment period to provide any remarks. And if you can please raise your hand using the Zoom option or send a message through the chat if you wish to speak on any item. And everybody is on mute, so if you could please unmute yourself to speak. And I will provide a link to our agenda and for all the materials in the chat box. This meeting is being recorded, so if members can please remember to express your presence verbally for the roll call and state your name when making a motion. So I will go ahead and begin with the roll call now. Nick Chulos, absent. Chris Donnelly, absent. Deneen Gus, absent. Robin McCray, absent. Melanie Rhodes, representing behavioral health.
Yes, I'm here.
John Minu, representing the Sheriff's Office.
I'm here.
Susan Chapman.
Present.
Chris Roll, representing the Superior Court Presiding Judge.
Here.
Todd Keating.
Here.
Robert Masterson.
Here.
Lori Medina.
Present.
And Berkeley Brannon, representing the District Attorney.
Yes, I'm here.
I just want to remind everybody that the executive committee members are the only ones who can bring a motion forward and vote on the action item. And let the record reflect the following are not present: Nick Chulos, Chris Donnelly, Deneen Gus, Robin McCray. And with that, we have a quorum of 7 members or alternates present via Zoom.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
There are no additions, corrections to the agenda.
Okay, so we'll move on to public comment. Is there any public comment on any item not on the agenda? You can raise your hand on Zoom or press *9 if you're on the phone. This is my first Zoom meeting of the CCP, so I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be looking for here, but Yolanda, do you see anybody raising their hand or wanting to speak?
No, it
Okay.
appears we don't have any public comment.
Okie doke. We'll move on to the calendar, which is comprised of the approval of the regular meeting minutes from February 10th, 2020, and the approval of the CCP meeting schedule for 2021. Would anybody like to pull either of those items on the consent calendar for discussion? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar?
This is Lori Medina, move approval.
Can I get a second?
John Mino.
All those in, or actually, can you take a roll call vote, Yolanda?
Yes. So, let's see, John Minu,
Aye.
Sue Chapman,
Aye.
Chris Roll,
Aye.
Todd Keating,
Aye.
Robert Masterson,
Aye.
Lori Medina,
Aye.
and Berkeley Brannon.
Aye.
Okay, so I guess that passed unanimously. No need to call any other votes. So we'll move on to scheduled items, which will be 4A, receive a fiscal update on AB 109 funding and budget. There's a spreadsheet and memo in your packet, and Don Souza will be presenting this item. Don?
Good afternoon, Chair and Partnership. I'll be presenting the staff fiscal update on the prior, current, and projected fiscal years. So if you could please refer into the attachment titled Fiscal Year 2019-20 CCP Approved Budget as compared to actual expenditures. I will also share that on my screen. So I'm going to review some highlights from last year, fiscal year 2019-20. The total program budget was $15.9 million. Annual expenditures were just under $14 million, and as compared to the amount budgeted, resulted in an approximate $2 million unspent variance. Many departmental unspent variances were due to savings realized from the challenges of the pandemic in the last half of the fiscal year. And these included delays and barriers in service delivery, hiring for vacancies, and purchases of capital equipment. I'm going to move on now to the next handout, and I'll share that to my screen. So please refer to the handout titled Summary of Total Funding and Annual Expenditures. And on this handout, I wanted to highlight a few things. First, foremost in our minds is that the pandemic has had far-reaching negative effects to the state economy, and as the handout reflects, from the current year on, has a direct impact to the Public Safety AB 109 program. Projected annual funding, including the planning grant, in future years is just under $12 million. And with the special one-time funding for this current year, for the realignment backfill that the state funded with state general fund dollars of $856,000, our annual funding for this current year is projected to be around $12.8 million. This is an overall funding decrease of 9% from the prior year. Use of the fund balance from prior years will mitigate the funding decrease this year. And we're hoping to finalize this fiscal year with a projected fund balance of $8.5 million. For revenue projections in future years, fiscal years 21-22, 22-23, ongoing revenue is projected to be flat with no growth funding at the level of $12 million per year, and the use of the fund balance in the following 2 years is expected to be needed in order to continue providing services at today's levels. I do want to mention that it's important to note that the conservative approach used by the Community Corrections Partnership in the management of public safety resources over the past years is anticipated to assist us in the immediate impact of the pandemic effect on the program for this year and following years. It's recommended that the strategy of being prudent with our resources continue in order to maintain the same level of services for as long as possible. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Don. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Okay, thank you, Don. We'll move on to the next item.
Could I, before we do that, Todd?
Yes.
Berkeley Brannon. Could I just ask a question? The main allocation, our base allocation, this year it was about 13.5 million, and the projected is 11.8, so it's, you know, almost $2 million less for 2021. And I'm just wondering, Don, is that did that go down? Is that because of COVID, or do we know why that number went down? It's the first line on your summary chart there.
Yes. So Speaking to that, Berkeley, the projected fiscal year 2021 funding amount of the 11.8 million, that comes directly from the California State Association of Counties projection, and that was based on the governor's May revise. So it is expected to be impacted by COVID, and their projections were roughly a 13 to 14% drop from the prior year. And luckily this year, the governor approved that backfill that kind of dropped our revenue decrease to 9%. So in answer to your question, the decrease is due to the pandemic economic effect.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question too? This is Chris.
Sure.
Dawn, I'm looking at the line on the summary chart, the fund balance reserve, the projected FY 2021 through 22-23 looks like it's pretty much following a straight line drop of about 4 million a year, projected to be down to about 3.9 million by fiscal year 22-23. So if that continues, it looks like we would be down to just about zero by fiscal year 23-24. And wondering, number one, if that is an accurate assumption. And number two, is there something that we should be doing to address that or account for that so we don't find ourselves in a potentially dire situation of zero fund balance or reserve?
Okay, so Chris, I'll address the first question and whether it's accurate. I think that this is as accurate as what the state is predicting at this point. Everything that we share with the CCP is based off of either the state projections or actuals that the program has realized in the past. So the funding that is projected is based on recommendations from the governor's office and CSAC that the funding is going to be flat with no growth projected for future years. They didn't indicate that the growth allocation for the planning grant was going to be reduced, and we continue to do that every year. So I kept that in the projection. So I would say the funding is as accurate as we can do today, but it is a challenge to get a revenue number. We're hoping that in January we'll have a revise from the governor's office, and we'll be able to provide updates with the February meeting to the CCP. As far as expenditures go, those are based on what's approved and budgeted for this fiscal year. And in the following fiscal years, there's just a 2% increase, and I've eliminated any one-time purchases from those projections. And as far as whether or not we're going to run out of reserve, well, that does remain to be seen. In the past, we have not fully spent our budgeted amounts. However, each year we get closer and closer to tracking with what's budgeted. So I would say that right now, what's projected is accurate. Moving on to your second question, is there something that we can do to potentially get us out of dire straits after fiscal year 22-23 or even during that fiscal year? And the answer is yes. And those would be along the lines of first, monitor, which we're doing. And if we spend less than what's budgeted, it's potential that the reserve can fully sustain us in fiscal year 22-23 and maybe in fiscal year 24-25. And then I would take it back to the chair and the partnership if there needs to be some discussion on any planning for future budget years. For this year, we are covered based on the current level of services we budgeted. For next fiscal year, that can be a discussion that can be definitely addressed during the budgeting process for fiscal year 21-22. Hopefully I've over-answered your question, Chris.
No, thank you, Dawn.
Sure.
That has definitely answered my questions.
Okay, you're welcome.
Hey, any other questions? Thank you, Don. Moving on to item 4B, which is to approve a $392,350 augmentation request by the Sheriff's Office for jail safety equipment in fiscal year 2021. I believe Captain Moses is presenting this item. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. Thank you. This item that we're proposing here is something that was already approved by this committee for last fiscal year. As we were getting through the year and we were starting to the process of getting approved by the Board of Supervisors and getting all of the all our ducks in a row on it, COVID hit, and COVID essentially took up all of our time. It was pushed to the back burner for us as we were preparing because it affected all of our operations here at the jail. When we kind of started getting the COVID under control and we found some time to start working on this project again, we found out that it was too late for us to actually take delivery of the items. And so we had to push it over back into this year. So we're asking for reallocation of those funds that were not expended in last fiscal year. I know we've gone through this already last year, but I'll quickly go through it again. I'll answer any questions that you may have about the specific items that we're requesting to purchase. The first one is the Chem Image mail scanner. That was a mail scanning device that detects contraband that's coming into the jail. For as long as jails have been around, inmates have tried to get contraband into the jail, and it's been our job to try to stop them. This is the latest in how we can prevent a lot of the contraband, specifically drugs and fentanyl, from getting into the jail. Last year, we had a fentanyl incident in which 8 of our inmates overdosed on fentanyl that was illicitly brought into the jail. 8 of them went to the hospital, had Narcan administered and all that. Luckily, nobody was died from it, but it was a very serious thing, and it could have been prevented if we had this type of technology. We do have a canine in the jail now, full-time, for the first time ever. That has been really having an effect on drugs such as heroin, marijuana, those types of things. However, canines are not able to detect fentanyl. So for us, that's one of our main issues. Even though COVID has taken the precedence and taken a lot of the public eye on COVID, fentanyl is still a very serious issue within our communities, and we need to address it as best we can. And that's the reason why we're going with this particular mail scanner. The second item that we're requesting is the Guardian automated tracking system. This is used to track inmate movement throughout the facility. It includes time out on the yard, time that they've been spending in programs, welfare checks. It alerts our sergeants or our shift supervisors if a check is late. So this is an item that automates that for us instead of the way that we have been doing it, which is basically pen and pencil, and not a lot of checks and balances there. With this system, we have a good system for checking and balancing and making sure that all of our inmates are getting the proper programming, the proper time out of their cell. And it's just a much more efficient way of tracking those. We also have a function on that Guardian system in which the deputy that is doing their checks or allowing somebody out for their program time of making notes in that program, so that in real time, either our psych staff or our supervisors or medical staff will get the notes that say an inmate is supposed to be coming out of their cell, but they've missed it for the last 3 days. They'll be able to track that much easier instead of just the word of mouth that we currently have. So with that, that's a very quick scenario of what we're looking at. I could take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Captain Moses. First off, I'll open it up for public comment on this item, if there's any. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the CCP for questions or discussion.
Mr. Chair, just one question. So it sounds like these were funds that were budgeted in the current year, but were not able to be spent in the current year because of the COVID. So it's really just shifting the expense from this year or from last year to this year. Is that?
That's correct.
Right?
Yes, it was due to be spent last year, but the Sheriff's Office was unable to take possession of the equipment in time to close it out. So it has to be reallocated for this fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
Susan Chapman, Public Defender. I think it's a really good allocation of the funds. It promotes inmate safety. and safety of the law enforcement officers that are taking care of the inmates. So I strongly urge the rest of the board to approve.
Any other discussion? Okay, can I get a roll call vote, please?
You're gonna-
Do we need to make a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Burke, is that what you were gonna say?
We need a motion.
Yeah, you gotta get a motion to approve the augmentation request by the sheriff's office for
This is-
safety equipment.
This is Bob Masterson, also move.
Can I get a second?
Susan Chapman, second.
And now can I get a roll call vote?
Yes. John Minu,
Aye.
Sue Chapman,
Aye.
Chris Rule,
My understanding is the court expects me to abstain on substantive votes. And so I think I would need to abstain unless my abstention would cause a lack of a quorum.
no, we could go ahead and abstain on this.
You may abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Todd Keating,
Aye.
Robert Masterson,
Aye.
Lori Medina,
Aye.
and Berkeley Brennan.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Move on to item C, which has two parts. The first is to approve the fiscal year 2021 Community Correction Partnership survey that's due to the BSCC by December 15th. And something that's new, which is the Public Safety Realignment Plan update that the BSCC is mandated also to be turned in by December 15th. And Marissa Fiore will be presenting this item. I think. Marissa, are you there?
Okay, let me see. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Fantastic. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. So this is Marisa Fiori from the Probation Department presenting item 4C that, as the chief mentioned, is in two parts. The first part is the approval of the CCP survey. This is something that we've done annually since the beginning, and this was a prerequisite for the state to release $150,000 in funding to our jurisdiction. And so that survey you're familiar with has two parts, has an A part and a B part, and pretty much identifies our goal, objectives, and outcome measures in the operational part and the allocation of funding in the fiscal part. The new requirements this year is this Public Safety Realignment Plan update. We were notified on October 16th that this was an additional requirement, and we forecast that to be something that happens every year from now on. And it's a plan for fiscal year 2021, which already started. So what we have crafted in the plan was a description of our areas of intervention and our strategies and how they're reflected in the budget. And there is also a data element in this plan. This plan is also necessary to obtain the funding. It's due to BSCC at the same date on December 15th. It's going to be posted with all the other counties' plans on the BSCC website. And as I mentioned, it's something that is going to be crafted every year, or at least have an update every year. It describes exactly what the partners in this endeavor in public safety realignment are actually doing at this juncture, and is being compiled in collaboration with our county partners. And that's it, and unless anybody has questions.
Marissa, as Marissa stated, we found out on October 16th, I guess it was, that this was an added element that we had to turn in to qualify for the $150,000 allocation. So I instructed staff to, try to pull together an updated plan so we could get it out and, have the CCP review it prior to this meeting. And I hope everybody had a chance to review it. I think they did a wonderful job pulling it together. It looks nice. It's clear and concise. And with that, I will open it up for any public comment at this time on this plan. Elliot, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I just want to say I was very impressed by both reports, especially the work that's being done in the jail in terms of education and the programs. When I think back to when the CCC began and what was happening in the jails, I think this is absolutely incredible progress. So I thought it was really an impressive report. The one thing I was concerned about, but I know that this is an issue that you've dealt with before, is the inability to kind of look at recidivism and also, that the difficulty in evaluating the effectiveness of the programs. In other words, they all sound like great programs, but it really would be helpful, and maybe this is just impossible, to get some figures on recidivism or to find some mechanism where you can evaluate the effectiveness of the programs.
Thank you, Elliot. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the CCP for any questions or discussion. Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021 CCP survey and public safety realignment plan update?
Berkeley Brannon, so moved.
Second?
John Mino, second.
All right, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, John Minu,
Aye.
Susan Chapman,
Aye.
Chris Rule.
I think I can vote on this one. Aye.
Okay. Webb Keating,
Aye.
Robert Masterson,
Aye.
Lori Medina,
Aye.
and Berkeley Brannon.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes, and we'll move on to announcements. You can see here that the quarterly statistical report for July 1st through September 30th is posted on the CCP website, and there's a link there. I don't know, Elliot, have you checked that link if it works?
Yes, it does. I
Right
do have a question for
Okay.
for Under Sheriff Minot, and that's the when the year began, the number of inmates in the jail in January was 820, and then when the COVID came, it dropped down to 591 in May, but now in September it's back up to 786. So I just kind of wondered if you could explain that, or if it could be explained.
Yeah, thank you, Elliot. So obviously there was a lot of things that had an impact on our population this year. When the COVID hit and the shutdowns went into place, all of the shelter-in-place orders, we saw a dramatic decrease in the number of bookings, and it tapered off to really an all-time low in April when we had less than 500 bookings. That was also coupled with the California Supreme Court made some emergency bail rules that really created a zero bail schedule, which caused an awful lot of the pretrial population to come in and go out, almost right away. Now, as that was happening, Elliot, as our county jail population was starting to shrink, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation shut down their intake as they were trying to wrestle with COVID also. So when people got committed to state prison, CDCR wouldn't accept them. So that number has been growing on a month by month basis. And we surged all the way up. I'll have to have the captain check me on this, but we were somewhere in the neighborhood of 170 with CDC, just committed felons that we couldn't get rid of. And then here just this week, in fact, we've been working closely with the California State Sheriff's Association, who's been working close with the director, the Secretary of Corrections, to try and get that intake open. Now that's all against, they're fighting their own battles with a lot of, with outbreaks in the state prison system. So it's been really challenging to get that open. So they opened it up on a very limited basis where they would let us transfer the most problematic inmates, whether that be for health reasons or for disciplinary reasons. But then now, as they started to expand that, and actually just this past Monday, we were able to put together a total of 89 committed felons, which was great. I mean, that's 10% of our population. So at one point during the COVID, we had darn near 20% of our entire population was committed felons that we weren't able to offload. So we worked with the courts, we worked with the DA's office to try and keep some measure of a enhanced pretrial release via lesser bail in place to keep that number down. We also had a lot of hurdles with just trying to keep physical distancing in that jail was a nightmare. So we had to get a special occupancy permit, and we had to early move into part of our jail expansion. And then we had to early move into another chunk of the jail expansion because we were trying to create some clean space in the jail. So we just weren't bouncing that virus all over amongst, congregate living is a tough place to manage that. And the captain and the command team at that jail have just really worked tirelessly to shuffle that population, to move people around, to keep that, to just, to deal with that. We surged as high as nearly 300 active cases, and we're back down, now we're way back down. So I think we're headed towards a more normal scenario. The bookings started picking back up in May and have picked up through the summer. So we're starting to see normal booking levels. So, it's going to be hard to say what happens, at this point going forward as we see more shutdowns and curfews and things like that coming out of Sacramento. It's just really difficult to predict where we're headed from here.
Thank you. Okay. And thank you for your hard work too. I know you incredibly committed and devoted, and it's greatly appreciated.
Well, I thank you for that, Elliot. But I got to say our hats are off to Chief Deputy Bass, Captain Moses, to the commanders, the sergeants, the deputies. I mean, everybody bought in at a time when we could have seen staggering absenteeism and people out. Our people just stepped up and rose to the occasion and showed up every single day in a building that had 300 active cases, and they just sucked it up and showed up and did their job. So we couldn't be prouder of the way our team stepped up during this pandemic.
That's great. Any other questions or items of discussion? Seeing none. Our next CCP meeting is scheduled for December 9th, but since item C, which was the approval of the survey and the updated plan passed, there's really no reason to hold that meeting since no new budget items will be able to be presented at that time. So unless there's any objection, I will cancel that meeting, and our next meeting would be scheduled for February 4th, 2021. Is that okay with everybody? All right, sounds good. So with that, I will close out the meeting and we are adjourned. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.